Hey everybody, welcome to the 1947 Rise podcast, a podcast that helps India born, US trained Indians get integrated into the Indian technology ecosystem and inspires them to move back to India to build massive tech companies and or help enable the tech ecosystem. We do this by interviewing India born, US trained Indians who have moved back to India and built massive tech companies themselves and or helped enable the tech ecosystem. I'm excited to have Aniket Jindal on 1947 Rise podcast today. Aniket Jindal is the founder of Biconomy. Its mission is to make blockchain transactions simple. Prior to Biconomy, Ankit was an early employee at Binance. Aniket is also nurturing the Indian technology ecosystem by backing the Web3 founders in India. Aniket, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot, Shiva. Super excited to be here.
Let's start by you walking us through your journey of growing up in India and then moving to China and then moving back to India and what made you move back to India.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a kind of a mix of intuition and impromptu bold decisions like that. That's how led to things. But so kind of grew up in a very small city in India called Yamanagar. It's in Haryana. A lot of people might not know about it, but kind of grew up in a proper family business setup where like the usual next step is after schooling or college, you just join the business, and you kind of done. Um, and I did my engineering from PEC Chandigarh and always was interested in tech. While in college, I was awarded by like a scholarship from Hong Kong government. So I went to Hong Kong for 6 months to do some research and internship, and that was sort of a starting point for me to learn more about Asian culture and be closer to China. I came back to India and again, followed the same game book, like joined the family business. I worked there for about like 6 to 8 months. Then kind of realized that, of course, this is not for me, and had this hard discussion with my father that okay, moving forward, if I be here, probably I won't be happy, and of course, you won't be happy as well. Um, Started looking for other things, and the fascination of China was always there. I was fortunate enough to get into this dual degree by MIT Sloan in China. Like this is a dual degree course that is in Shanghai itself. Talked to multiple people, and I was like, "Who goes to China? Why are you going to China?" Like common options are US, Canada, UK, like XYZ, but not China. But always like had some fascination towards China and wanted to explore like what can be done there. Um, Enrolled in the program, and very first month, I was part of the one of the meetup where people were talking about Bitcoin, and I was like, okay, this doesn't make sense to me. This is probably going to be a scam. Within like 7 days, demonetization happened in India. And that is where my mind kind of triggered towards like what is the next revolution in the financial ecosystem going to be, and that's where I kind of got into this system. I'll say like happened to be the right time, the right place because things were just getting started in China. And so back in 16, 17, China was leading all the sort of crypto innovations. Like major exchanges were based out of China, and most of the important conferences, etc., were also like happening over there only. Um, as like you already mentioned, I was fortunate enough, like I joined Binance early on. Like when I joined, it was like a small exchange of 20 people. I joined as an intern. It's quite funny, like my joining story is also very funny. Like uh, uh, I was never looking for a job. In fact, I just called the office. I was like, okay, this is something interesting, I want to learn more about it. And CZ picked up, and he said, okay, why don't you come to the office, I'll tell you more about it. I went to the office. It's like we're looking for an intern who can help us in marketing and stuff. I'm like, okay, this is perfect for me. And like, I'll come from tomorrow. Like next year, I started working at Binance, and like that was one of the best times of my life. Like 6 months, kind of learned everything about crypto, made some connections, and yeah, that's how my journey in crypto got started officially.
Yeah, as you rightly said, being at the right place at the right time, and just world is just weird. You know how things can later on connect. And we do have a common thread. You went to Chandigarh, which is my hometown, and it's a beautiful city. So you ended up moving back. What year was that, and how did Biconomy come about?
Yeah, yeah. So I was like working fine in Shanghai, and I was planning to be there like for longer. But late in 2017, Chinese government banned all the exchanges. So exchanges kind of had to leave China and close all the operations there. And I was still a student there. I didn't have, because my degree was supposed to end in 2018, like early. So I had this sort of a dilemma whether like to be in China and see what's happening there, or move back to India and do something over there. Things were very uncertain in China, and talked to multiple people, and a lot of suggestions like I got was like people are moving out of China, like it's better to move out of China and do things. And I always had this, of course, like coming from India, things were just getting it started in India back then. So a wise step for me was to just move back to India and see like what's happening in the Indian blockchain ecosystem. So 2018 was like all moving back to India. I started like getting involved with projects, started investing also a little here and there, majorly to know the ecosystem and what's happening here. It was a very small ecosystem. I'll say like what 40, 50 people max. Like we're doing things. It was a very close kind of a community as well. So like 2018, the entire year, I was just majorly like seeing what's happening, talking to people, helping a few projects. So helped like few projects on a personal basis. Kind of one of the things I kind of realized is that a lot of people are trying to do things, but no one is using it. Like that was a common trend I was seeing, that people are coming up with different protocols. People are solving for problems that don't even exist at this point of time, and everyone was kind of scared away from crypto. In fact, crypto based applications, like that was unknown. Now we always hear about NFTs, DAOs, DeFi, but metaverse, all these buzzwords. Back then there was nothing there. People are still working on all these applications, but of course like in a very small scale. And common like trend after talking to a lot of developers I found was that tools and infrastructure is kind of missing. And they want they want like people to use their applications, but no one is using them. Like getting like few hundred of users was like a biggest pain point. And I myself also felt it, like while using applications I was like, okay, if this is going to take me 5 days to use all this application, who's going to be using it? Like we are kind of gonna be in a world where you can have like a one-click transaction on Paytm, like your money gets transferred. But in crypto, it takes forever. Like you have like 20, 21, 22 odd steps to do first transaction. And I was like, okay, this is such a broken ecosystem. And if we kind of see that mass adoption going to be happening, or if we want to have mass adoption in this like technology, uh, there need to be like a better way. And this is how kind of Biconomy got started, with the main aim of how we can simplify the applications and simplify the transactions in the space. So Biconomy's core mission always has been like how we can make transactions easy, like for the end users. And in crypto, transactions are very different from transactions in a Web2 space. Like in Web2 space, whenever people talk of transaction, you always talk of payments, right? Like payment is the only way people transact. But in crypto, like anything can be a transaction. Anything like displayed on blockchain becomes a transaction. And for that to happen, like for an end user who has no idea about crypto, it is still like it is a very long process. So this is something what we are solving, and we've been working on this for last 3 years almost now.
Gotcha. And it's funny, how things play out in the hindsight, right? Like when you heard the news, okay, you have to pack up, and people are moving out of China. You're like, what do I do next? And that forced you to actually move back, and you were early in the ecosystem. If you saw the opportunity, you saw a large problem to solve for, started building Biconomy. And what's the magical outcome that you hold for Biconomy?
So I mean, long term, I want to onboard like a billion users into the space, and that's something I've been working on. I'm in a world where personal, be bit selfish. When my mom can use application, I'll be like, okay, this is something I've built something that people are using it because uh, my mom just started using WhatsApp like 2 years ago or something. So I want to reach blockchain. I want to make blockchain application to that point where anyone are using it unknowingly that okay, there's blockchain at the back end. So it's a long journey ahead for me. In fact, everyone in the ecosystem, and I and we at Biconomy personally are very much focused on infrastructure in the space, that how we can make picks and shovels and tools so that people can make user-facing applications much more simple. So that's something keeps us motivating and something we've been doing for the last 3 years. Like we kind of took like a road less taken, like very focused on product, and uh, of course we started at a time when there were no applications, like few handful of applications, and people were like, okay, you're betting on ecosystem that if the applications scale up, only then you'll be successful. But we were like very focused that okay, this is something definitely going to be happening. And I think from last few years, we have definitely seen that how the ecosystem have scaled up, and like how people are using my economy.
Love it, and I love the mission, Aniket. Let's get it. And let's just say you're telling a kid, you're giving him or her an overview of Web3 ecosystem, in India. How it started. Was there an inflection point? Where are we today, and where do you see it going in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And um, I've seen all the highs and lows in India, like from where it kind of originated and what happened and what's happening. So Indian ecosystem, of course, started. Every ecosystem starts with primarily exchanges, right? Like people first you have to get people aware about Bitcoin and Ethereum, that is like most marketing crypto asset people know, right? So like back in 17 it was all about trading, like what coin to buy, and like how do you get people Bitcoin, like because firstly understanding of Bitcoin was definitely like a biggest pain point, and still I think now we kind of reaching to a point where people understand like which Bitcoin is different from blockchain. Back then it was like okay, blockchain is Bitcoin. That was like people usual understanding about crypto. So 17 18 was more towards spreading awareness regarding okay, what can Ethereum do, what is Bitcoin, how Ethereum is different from Bitcoin, and just making people own crypto assets, like that was how like it all got started. And there were major exchanges, Epay, etc., who were kind of leading the charge over there. But the prime motive of them was like making people buy all these assets. Uh, Development and innovation kind of started, I'll say, like 2018, when it was just getting started, when people said okay, now you have Bitcoin, now you have Ethereum, what do you do with that, like, how you can actually revolutionize, like make financial ecosystem better, make gaming better, like people were starting working on MVPs in 18, and that was, I'll say, 18, 19, 20, mid 20 was like the most difficult times in crypto, because 2017 was like a massive crypto craze where everyone was buying crypto, and the major aim was to procure crypto assets. But of course, a lot of bad actors also came into play, where people were like just claiming to be the next Bitcoins or Ethereum. So sort of the bubble bursted in January 2018, where a lot of people actually lost a lot of money, and a lot of bad actors also started getting filtered from the space. So the entire filtration process kind of took like almost 2 years, where people who were like long-term supporters of the technology were in the space, and they actually didn't care about the money part,
Mhm. Yeah.
because funding was like really difficult back then. Like 18, 19, 20 was like I'll say like we've seen that, like because when we got started with Biconomy, all the VCs used to stay like a mile away from crypto. They were like, okay, they'll invest in anything but crypto, and projects were kind of madly living in on grants or sort of like bootstrapping the projects. So same in India, like 18, 19, 20, like there were only a handful of projects, but all these projects were very dedicatedly like devoted towards crypto. Like people were like, no matter what happens, probably they'll not pay anyone in the team, but they'll still like start working on it. They'll keep on working on it till the crypto is alive. So many, like stories we have heard. Of course, everyone knows in India how Polygon kind of led the way. 18 was when they got started, and like along with Polygon, like bunch of other companies also got started. So 18, 19, 20, I'll say, was sort of an experimentation phase where people were like, okay, let's build something. Like we deep believers of this technology will make sure that this technology results into something without caring about the outcomes. And mid 2020 was where things started happening, where people started realizing that, okay, this definitely has potential, and let's spend some more time in it. The first wave was like DeFi, like DeFi was where people started realizing that the potential it can have, for like a common, like mainstream audience, or a common man. So 2020, 21 was where people were very much encouraging. Like an entire media outcome also changed. Like 18, 19, 20, media was like, okay, this is all scam, like stay away from it. 2021, like, things started happening, and media was also very supportive and started like educating people more about the technology aspect rather than the price aspect. So I'll say just like been a year and a half where, like a lot of things happen in India. VC's perspective kind of changed. Like people, VCs who were like not ready to fund or give like a single penny to a project started pouring in money. Like a lot of foreign money came in the system, and entire dynamics of the industry kind of changed. So I'll say it's still very early right now, because it's been just a year and a half where people started building. And one of the things I personally have seen in India is that like a lot of traditional people, Web2 people, have started entering the space, not only from investment standpoint but also from builders, developers, entrepreneurs. So like we are seeing so many use cases from DeFi, gaming, NFTs, etc. So it's just a starting point, and I'm kind of a deep believer of it. We have what, like 10,000, 20,000 active developers in the space. So, and in terms of number of active users, there's still like what, few tens or twenties of millions, and my personal mission is to onboard like a billion. So you can probably see like we're still like what, 10, 2 or 3% there yet. So a long journey, and this is like anyone who's starting the career, this is a place where you have to be. If you have to be, like if you're like very much in for like technology and next revolution happening. So Web3 is a place where community is very supportive, where you can reach out to anyone in the space. Like founders are pretty active, and the entire ethos of Web3, where you know uh, anyone with no prior degrees, or solid benchmarks in terms of education, in terms of strong prior branding support, is it's not needed. Just go here and build something, and people will find you. Like you don't have to find people; we will find you out.
Love it. And I think kudos to you, JD, Sandeep, Polygon guys, and bunch others. You've been in it for the right reasons, right? There's a lot of tourists. They'll come in for the opportunity and leave. And I'm glad, we have folks like you guys. Uh, and you're right, like fast forward to today, it's unreal, like how in fact, I was talking to a friend of mine. There's like a reverse, or not, there's like a brain drain where solid web 2 developers, founders, they're starting companies in web 3. That's what the pitch decks I'm seeing these days. And rounds are getting closed within a week or two. And अब तो रणवीर सिंह भी अपना टाइम आएगा something. He came up with that ad.
Yeah.
No, exciting times. I'm really really excited about what we gonna see in Web3. uh, Aniket, we'll switch gears here. Man, so you've had a fantastic career, and of course, there's a long way to go, and you've had a very interesting experience as well, living in China, working there early in Web3 days, moving back. Things are not easy, right? We are always figuring it out. When things are not working for you, what frameworks do you use to bring yourself back on track?
Yeah, I think a really good question. So um, things were not working for me when, I mean, it's always the case, like whenever you kind of start a startup, there's always midnight crisis, happening, and you're like, okay, what do we do? And every founder always has this thought in mind. Like, I've talked to so many people that, what if everything kind of goes away? Like, how do you kind of keep focus? Like, how do you keep back to track? I think talking to people you trust definitely help, like a lot of, because it's a very lonely journey, an entire like starting a company, building company, and there's like so many things that actually you don't share with anyone. But what I've kind of realized, at least what worked for me, is like I talk to people, and talk to people not from the same industry. I just talk, in general, that okay, this is something that happening, and get those things out of my, like mind and my soul, so that I kind of keep back in track. So that definitely worked for me. I don't believe in like taking time offs. Honestly, like people usually do that. Like they go for like a month long vacation. uh, it kind of backfired. Maybe like just personally, that if whenever I kind of went, I started working more. I started thinking about more. It kind of backfired on me. But and always, like if I've seen like if you are kind of in for the right reasons, and if you have like a very strong focus towards what you want to achieve from the space, you always figure out a way out. Like if you keep on like getting yourself into the way, and things will happen. Like we have seen it happening. So when we started Biconomy, like back in 19, first year, there was no VC, ready to fund us. I was like putting on my own money. We were unpaid. We were not even paying our employees. We were like, okay, what do we do with that? Like, of course, you can live with it for like 3 to 4 months, or maybe like maximum a year. What is next for you? And I'll tell you what happened. So that is the money part. Okay, that is something probably like in parallel happening at the same time. What we were building, and everyone was like, okay, uh, you should shut your company down. Like no one's going to be using it. And the first product we built, and the first launch we did, it didn't work. Like it got integrated to an application, and application was like, this is something, it took me like a month to integrate, and still it's not working. I'm never going to be using it. So we were like, okay, we don't have money, we have product, like no one is wanting to use, like what do we do now? And people were getting also a bit irritated, like in the company, like what is happening? So we were kind of all got together. We're like, okay, like let's revamp the product. you know let's not focus on the money part that much. If we focus on the product, money will come, like it's outcome. So we revamp the product. We just focus on like building it, making sure that people use it, and things automatically happened. Like when no one wanted to fund us, everyone started to reaching out to us that okay, there's something interesting, they want to talk to us, they want to like like invest and work with us. So this sort of worked out. Like okay, you keep on working on the same thing. Of course, there are different pathways, you figure out which is the best pathway for you, but once you kind of stop working on it, things will never happen.
Yeah, stay at it long enough and you'll eventually get what you deserve. So, Aniket, let's say money and attention are not needed anymore. What would you work on?
Okay, nice. It's a good question. Definitely, money has become a commodity. Like if you're kind of working on something, it'll just come to you. For me, it is just towards my personal goal was, how do you empower people like in the space, and I was very much aligned towards getting India back to track. Like, and it's still kind of doing that because. Um, we it was very difficult for anyone in India to build something, or in fact like think something of like building like a unicorn, like a multi-million dollar company. And it was always we were always like on the inferior side of things, that okay, things might not happen from Indian founders. So a long part of what I do is also towards how we can kind of empower more Indian founders, and uh, im- impose confidence in them that of course they can also compete with the western side of the world. That was always like never a thought process when people were building companies like few years ago. Like few years ago, like when I was not even starting a company, like founders used to talk to, like most of the companies people used to think of course like a copycat of what's happening in like Valley, right? Like they just build copy the same molds. But with Web3, actual innovations are happening from India. So a lot of my personal agenda is always towards how I can kind of support more in founders, and also focus more on the innovation happening in the space. So this is something I'm pretty close to, and something actually I wanna see like more happening.
So we know you because of the founder of Biconomy, building something in Web3, and also empowering founders building in Web3. What do your friends know you for?
So yeah, I mean, my college friends know me for someone who's like there's a this term called jugaad.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So jugaad is like
सबको
getting
पता
accent.
है.
So
इंडिया
this
से तो
person,
सबको पता था.
like a jugaadu, like some sort of a guy who kind of fix things up. So
यार बात बन नहीं रही है, अनिकेत के पास चलते हैं, वो बताएगा कुछ.
so of course, like for me, I was like, I mean, in college, I was never like, I would never thought like I'll get into Bitcoin or something. But it was always like, okay, if you have to, it's always a guy like who gets something done. So they know me
Yeah.
for like some jugaad, like maybe like he has some contacts here and there. Maybe, like you think something like a short term solution to like a problem. So I was sort of that guy.
Love it, Aniket. Really appreciate you for taking the time, coming on the podcast, and really, walking us through your journey and giving us a excellent overview on Web3. And yeah, no, I'm with you, on it, and a lot of folks from India. Of course, let's build something special, in Web3 space. I think that's where a lot of smart people are saying that as well. Binance, your ex, person you worked with at early, he spoke very highly of India, that innovation would come from India, so that's a big testimonial. Thank you. I had a great time, Aniket. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for having me, Shiva. It was like definitely very, like different conversation, like this time, and I really, really enjoyed it thoroughly.